Dream of the Red Chamber, Chapter 70.
Okay, let's unpack this because the way this sequence begins is honestly quite jarring.
It really is.
We drop right into the immediate aftermath of a tragedy.
We do. We open with Jia Lian, who has just spent 7 days and nights at the Lixiang courtyard.
7 days.
7 days. He has been overseeing Buddhist rituals for the dead. And try to picture the heavy atmosphere of that. 7 continuous days of solemnity, the chanting of monks and priests, the smell of incense.
The sheer spiritual weight of mourning a life lost.
Exactly.
But the mourning doesn't last. The absolute coldness of the aristocratic machine kicks in almost immediately.
It doesn't miss a beat.
Grandmother Jia, the matriarch, steps in and explicitly forbids the burial from taking place in the family temple.
So Jia Lian is suddenly cut off from the traditional avenues of grief, right? He has to quietly arrange a burial spot just above another deceased character, Yu Sanji. And the funeral itself is virtually empty.
Barely anyone is there.
Only a few clansmen, the Wangxin couple and Yushi, attend.
It paints a striking picture of isolation within a supposedly tight-knit family structure.
Yeah.
The family's public image and their internal rules dictate that this death cannot be honored in the traditional way. And adding to that isolation, Jia Lian's wife, Wang Shifeng, completely ignores the entire affair.
She just checks out.
She leaves him to handle it all alone.
It seems like this family handles grief the exact same way they handle their staffing issues, with cold bureaucratic efficiency.
Oh, that transition is brutal.
Because right after brushing past this lonely funeral, we pivot straight into end-of-the-year human resources tasks.
Literal HR work.
Yeah, a manager named Lin Zixao submits a list to the household leadership. He has a quota of 8 25-year-old single male servants who need wives before the year ends.
What's fascinating here is how the narrative juxtaposes the spiritual weight of a funeral with the highly transactional nature of servant marriages.
It's just a checklist to them.
Completely. The leadership, specifically Wang Qifeng, Grandmother Jia, and Lady Wang, they have a meeting to try and match these 8 men with maids who are ready to be dismissed from the inner household.
They treat it entirely like inventory management.
But the bureaucracy breaks down the moment it hits human reality.
The complications they run into are so revealing about the environment of this estate.
Oh, absolutely.
They look at their available intermaids, but everyone has a situation. Take Yuan Yang, for example.
Her story is intense.
She has sworn a vow never to marry. And she isn't just saying that. To prove her absolute dedication to maintaining her bodily autonomy, she refuses to wear makeup, and she refuses to even speak to Bayu.
Her resolve is so intense that the leadership actually backs down. They realize they can't force her.
Then you have Hu Pu.
Right, who is simply too sick to be married off.
And perhaps the most tragic on this list is Kai Yun.
Yeah, Kaiyun is terminally ill. She contracted an incurable disease after a severe falling out with Jia Huan.
So the women who might have been matched are either fiercely resisting through vows of celibacy, or they are physically broken by the environment they live and work in.
It's incredibly dark, and for anyone tracking the social currency of this estate, being matched with an outside maid isn't just a logistical hiccup for these men.
It's a massive drop in status.
Exactly. Inner maids are the trusted, vetted staff. But because the inner maids are either too sick or too defiant, the leadership tells these 8 male servants they have to look outside the estate to find wives.
It's a fascinating look at the limits of the estate's control over its people.
It really is. The institution tries to manage everything: funerals, marriages, social standing, but it cannot completely control the internal lives or the physical bodies of the people trapped within it.
Which is a perfect segue.
Right, because speaking of internal lives, just as we are wrapping our heads around this rigid social structure, we are pulled into the deep emotional interior of Bayu.
Yes, and Bayu is drowning.
He is in a bad place.
He is in a state of severe, paralyzing depression. He is described as dazed, acting erratic, and speaking nonsensically. And for you listening, it is vital to understand the context here.
This isn't just a fleeting melancholia.
Not at all.
He is deeply traumatized by a...
I love their solution. Their cure for a massive, heavy, depressive episode is basically jumping into a WWE-style morning tickle fight.
It's so unexpected.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The visual shift is cinematic. We go from dark, heavy grief into an explosion of chaotic color.
Walk us through that morning scene because the sensory details are vital.
So Bellew wakes up early to the sound of uncontrollable laughter. He throws on a gray squirrel fur coat and walks out to his room.
And it's a mess.
Total mess. The beds aren't made. No one is properly dressed yet. It's pure morning chaos. You have the maid, King Wen, wearing a green silk jacket and bright red sleeping shoes with her hair completely down and wild.
Such vivid colors.
She is physically sitting on top of another maid, Xiangnu, also called Wen Duli, and she's getting backup from Shi Yu, who's wearing a red bodice and an old jacket.
They are absolutely mercilessly tickling Xiangnu.
Yes, and Xiangnu is trapped on the bed wearing a floral tight suit, red pants, and green socks.
The green socks with the red pants.
Right. She is laughing so hard she can't breathe, her legs kicking wildly in the air. The colors alone, the bright greens, the reds, the floral prints, are such a striking contrast to the bleakness of the funerals and illnesses we just discussed.
It's an overload of life.
Bayu sees this, yells that two big ones shouldn't pick on a little one, and jumps right onto the bed to join the fray.
He just dives in.
He starts tickling King Wen until she lets go, and it turns into a complete free-for-all.
Meanwhile, Shi Ren, the head maid, is watching them all tumble around fondly, warning them not to catch a cold in their light clothes.
She's the mom of the group.
Totally. Now, looking at the psychology of this moment, it isn't just a random bit of levity.
No, it serves a purpose.
The tactile physical comedy, the bright colors, the physical touch, the breathlessness of laughing, it serves as a direct sensory antidote to Bayu's grief.
That makes so much sense.
Grief traps you in your head and in the past. A tickle fight violently forces you into your physical body and into the present moment.
It's a wonderful reminder that even in an environment steeped in death and strict rules, youth still insists on making noise.
And that noise doesn't go unnoticed.
Right, the loud, joyful chaos in Bayu's room draws the attention of a visitor, which provides our transition. A maid named Bu comes over from Li Wan's courtyard looking for a lost handkerchief.
Just to close the loop on the mundane details, one of Bayu's maids, Xiaoyan, actually found the handkerchief, washed it, and hung it up to dry.
Nice and tidy.
But Biyu's visit is really about the observation she makes.
She stands there watching Bayu and his maids rolling around, and she points out the intense microclimates of the different courtyards.
It's a great observation.
She compares the lively chaos of Bayu's room to the oppressive silence of her own boss's quarters. Li Wan, her mistress, keeps incredibly strict rules.
Very rigid.
She doesn't lie play. She has effectively locked down the atmosphere, and as a result, her courtyard is emptying out. People are leaving. It's becoming isolated.
It shows how the personality of the leadership dictates the environment of the space. And Biyu notes that this isolation is spreading. Bao Chai's place is feeling empty now that Xiang Ling is left, which leaves young Xiang Yun all by herself.
There is a pervasive sense of loneliness creeping into the different corners of the estate.
But while they are discussing this creeping loneliness, Xiang Yun's maid, Kui, Love, arrives with a mission.
She invites Bao Yu out to the Qinfang Pavilion because the young women have a new poem they want him to read.
They are mobilizing.
They have decided to gather Dayu Baochai, Shangyun Baoken, and Tanchun to revive their poetry club.
The discussion they have about revising this club is deeply tied to the natural world.
How so?
Well, Shangyun points out a crucial flaw in their past efforts. Their original club, the Begonia Club, was founded in the autumn.
Okay.
Shangyun argues that starting a creative endeavor in a season defined by decay is why it didn't thrive.
Oh, that's interesting.
But now it is spring. It is a time of renewal of growth. So they make a collective decision to harness that energy and rename their group the Peach Blossom Club.
I hear the renewal argument, but part of me wonders if this is just pure elite escapism.
That's a valid point.
They are living in an estate where servants are dying of stress and friends are fleeing to monasteries, and their response is to rebrand their exclusive poetry club for the spring. Are they actually renewing anything, or are they just retreating into a privileged bubble?
That is a very fair critique of their actions. It is absolutely a form of escapism.
Right.
But I would argue that in a society where they have zero control over their marriages, their physical movements or their ultimate fates retreating into the intellect might be their only survival mechanism.
Their minds are the only free space.
The poetry club is the only space where they have agency.
That makes sense. It's a sanctuary. And that brings us to the poem itself, which is really the emotional centerpiece of this excerpt.
The Peach Blossom Song.
It's called the Peach Blossom Song. The imagery is so vivid. You have a soft spring wind blowing outside, but inside there is a lonely person leaning on a railing, weeping behind a bamboo blind.
The poem draws a devastating comparison between the weeping person's tears and the peach blossoms blooming outside.
It contrasts the two, right?
Yes. Tears flow out of sorrow while the flowers charm with their beauty. But it also aligns them in their impermanence.
Because spring doesn't last.
Exactly. The poem observes that when the tears finally dry and the spring season ends, the beautiful flowers will also wither and die.
It's a profound meditation on fleeting beauty and enduring sorrow.
And Bao Yu's reaction to reading this is incredibly telling.
He doesn't offer polite literary criticisms.
Not at all.
He immediately bursts into tears. He actually has to turn away and secretly wipe his eyes so the others don't see.
It hits him hard.
He has this visceral, full-body reaction because he instantly knows, without a shadow of a doubt, who wrote it.
He knows it is Lin Daiyu's work.
This sparks a fascinating intellectual debate among the group because they decide to play a guessing game with him.
Bao Kan playfully steps up and claims she wrote it.
And Bao Kai steps in to defend that claim, arguing a point of literary theory.
Right. Bao Chai suggests that great poets are versatile. They can write convincingly in any style or emotion, regardless of their own lived experience.
But Bao Yu completely rejects that premise. His counter-argument is brilliant.
It really is.
First, he uses behavioral logic. He points out that Bao Chai would never actually allow Bao Kan to write such sorrowful, heartbreaking words.
She would deem it inappropriate or excessively gloomy.
Exactly. But then he goes deeper into empathy. He argues that Bao Kan simply hasn't experienced the deep, soul-crushing trauma of separation and loss that Lin Dayu has.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this scene is a masterclass in demonstrating Bao Yu's emotional intelligence.
He sees right through it.
He is looking right past the ink on the paper and seeing the soul of the author. He recognizes the authentic, undeniable voice of Dayu's trauma.
He proves that he understands her internal world better than anyone else in that courtyard.
He is essentially arguing that true resonant art, like the Peach Blossom song, cannot be faked by a versatile poet.
It has to be lived.
It has to be bled onto the page by someone who has lived that specific sorrow.
It is a beautiful testament to how closely he observed and understands her. They share this incredibly deep emotional moment of connection through the art.
But as always in this environment, the real world eventually comes crashing back in.
The excerpt ends with a series of logistical hurdles that drag them out of their sanctuary and back into their social obligations.
They move as a group to Li Wan's place, Doxiang Village, to finalize the plans for the club.
They agree to officially start the Peach Blossom Club on March 2nd.
And they elect Dayu as the president. Dayu is clearly inspired, and she immediately wants to set a rigorous first assignment,
She wants everyone to write 100-rhyme Peach Blossom poems.
which Belchai immediately vetoes.
Right. She says writing 100 rhymes about peach blossoms is too cliché.
It's a small moment, but it shows that even inside their creative sanctuary, there are still critics and social rules to negotiate.
And before they could even settle on a new prompt, duty calls.
The outside world interrupts in the form of a visit from an elder Wang Zitang's wife.
The young women have to drop their poetry, go out, greet her, and perform their mandatory social duties as hostesses.
And the obligations keep piling up. They realize the very next day is Tanchen's birthday.
In this family, a birthday involves formal gifts arriving from Yuanchun in the imperial palace.
It requires all of them to make mandatory family appearances and spend the entire day playing their designated parts in front of the elders.
Because of these unrelenting social obligations, the grand revival of the Poetry Club has to be officially postponed.
They push it back to the 5th of the month.
It's a very pragmatic, slightly deflating ending to a highly emotional day.
The scene shifts abruptly. A letter arrives at the estate from the strict patriarch, Jia Zheng. He is announcing his return to the capital in mid-June.
Which, for most of the family, is supposed to be momentous, welcome news.
Right, for everyone except Bayu. He is our rebellious, poetry-loving teenage protagonist. For him, this is terrible news. It's like a doomsday clock suddenly ticking down.
Because Bao Yu represents this massive philosophical clash, He completely despises the rigid formal studying required for the imperial examinations.
He hates the eight-legged essays.
Exactly. He views the pursuit of bureaucratic rank as soul-crushing. His natural inclinations lean heavily toward Taoist and Buddhist ideals, authenticity, emotional freedom, appreciating nature.
But his father is the exact opposite.
Right, Jiazing is the embodiment of strict Confucian duty. He expects absolute adherence to academic rigor, so his return means an immediate, severe audit of Bayu's compliance.
And that audit actually starts before the dad even gets home. It starts with his incredibly practical maid, Jiren.
She is definitely the voice of reason in his life.
Yeah, she reminds him that his father is going to check his daily calligraphy practice first thing. Bao Yu tries to bluff. He claims he has a substantial stack of completed pages, but Zurin shatters that illusion.
The unavoidable reality crashing in.
Exactly, they count his work. Over the last 3 to 4 years, he has produced a grand total of 50 to 60 pages.
50 pages. Over 3 years.
The math is just not in his favor.
Not at all. So Bao Yu has this deeply recognizable psychological response. He swings violently from total avoidance to completely unrealistic overcompensation.
He vows right then and there to write 100 characters a day to close the gap before his father arrives.
It's the ultimate procrastinator's panic.
And the art of cramming begins.
No.
The very next morning, Bao Yu goes into absolute seclusion. He actually skips his morning greetings to his grandmother, Jia Mother.
Who is the ultimate matriarch of the family.
Right, and she immediately assumes he must be physically ill. But when she finds out he's just sequestered in his room frantically writing, she uses her authority to excuse him from all daily duties. She gives him the isolation he needs to cram.
His mom, Lady Wang, though she provides this brilliant layer of commentary on the situation, she is highly skeptical of this sudden diligence.
She drops this amazing proverb in the text. She says, "Sharpening your spear right before battle is useless."
Which is such a great line. She knows her son's nature. She knows that knowledge cultivated through sheer panic is shallow. And she genuinely fears that the stress of this concentrated effort will literally break his health before his father even crosses the threshold.
Yeah. But looking at this objectively for a second, isn't Bao Yu essentially just dodging his fundamental responsibilities? He has immense privilege, yet he avoids his education while his family and servants just accommodate his whims.
I mean, it is entirely possible to read it that way on the surface, but doing so misses the broader thematic architecture of the novel.
How so?
This sequence isn't just about a wealthy teenager avoiding his homework. This moment showcases the deep, quiet solidarity among the youth in this estate.
The group chat's saving the day.
Exactly. Their actions represent a unified rebellion against the suffocating patriarchal expectations of the adult world. They are protecting the fragile, authentic world they've built together within the garden, a world that Jia Zhang's arrival threatens to dismantle.
And that solidarity materializes into a highly coordinated cover-up operation. His sisters, Tanchun and Baochai, actually volunteer to forge 1 page of calligraphy a day for him.
It's a synchronized effort to manufacture his compliance.
And Dayu senses his mounting panic, so she intentionally stalls the start of their upcoming poetry club. She feigns a lack of inspiration solely to ensure Bao Yu won't be distracted.
And we really can't understate the technical skill required to execute this forgery.
Oh, right. There's that specific moment when Dayu's maid, Zihuan, delivers a roll of bamboo paper to Bao Yu. He opens it, and inside is perfectly forged calligraphy executed in the Zhongwang-style tiny regular script.
Which is incredibly demanding. The Zhongwang style refers to legendary masters. It requires absolute brush control, flawless discipline, and a deep internalization of classical forms.
And it looks exactly like Bao Yu's handwriting.
For these young women to seamlessly replicate his execution of such a demanding script, it's a monumental feat of artistic capability and loyalty.
Even cousins Zhang Yun and Bao can chip in to hit the quota. So they engineer this backlog of acceptable work, giving Bao Yu a glimmer of hope. But then we get this sudden, ironic plot twist of epic proportions.
A literal act of nature alters the trajectory of their world.
A massive coastal tsunami disaster occurs in the region.
Right, so the emperor orders Jia Zhang to immediately detour from his journey home and take command of the disaster relief efforts.
Which delays his return to the capital entirely. It's pushed back to the winter.
The threat vanishes in an instant.
Gone. And the punchline is how Bao Yu reacts. The second he receives this news, he immediately abandons his desk, leaves the forged pages behind, and resumes wandering the estate, completely unburdened.
It's a profound observation of human nature. When a terrifying obligation is suddenly lifted by an external force, the natural impulse is rarely to use that newly freed time to build better habits.
You just revert to your natural state.
Exactly. For
Oh.
Bao Yu, that state is observation, leisure, and emotional engagement with the world around him, completely devoid of those artificial examination pressures.
So the tone really shifts here. We fast forward a few months to late spring. With the threat of the patriarch removed, that frantic energy is replaced by a luxurious, almost restless boredom.
Spring fever.
Yeah. One afternoon, cousin Shangyun is observing the willow catkins blowing through the air, and she casually composes a short poem to the tune of Ru Mingling.
And the mechanics of what Xiangyan initiates here are crucial. She's not writing free verse.
She's writing Sai poetry.
Yes.
Yeah.
This requires drawing a specific pre-existing tune title, in this case, Ru Mengling, and fitting original lyrics into strict rhythmic and tonal patterns dictated by that historical melody.
It demands a vast vocabulary and a deep understanding of tonal constraints.
It is an intellectual pursuit of the highest order, but framed here as just a casual afternoon pastime.
And Dayu reads Xiangyin's piece and is immediately captivated. She rallies the group, prepares tea and snacks, and officially relaunches their dormant poetry club.
They transform their idle spring afternoon into a structured intellectual arena.
With Willow Catkins as the central theme. The rules are established by drawing lots to assign the specific tunes. Bao Chai draws Lin Jiang Yan.
Bao Ken receives Shi Jiang Yu.
Tanchen draws Nan Qizi.
Dai Yu gets Tong Duoling.
And Baiyu draws Nai Lianhua. And to add pressure to the composition process, Daiyu's maid lights a stick of sweet dream incense.
That slowly burning incense acts as their physical timer. As long as it burns, they can compose. Once it turns to ash, the writing must cease.
And the source material uses this timed constraint to transition from a narrative about dodging patriarchal authority into a masterclass on psychological portraiture. How each character approaches the Willow Catkin under the pressure of that timer reveals the core of their individual psyches.
The collaborative, yet intensely competitive nature of this process exposes their internal priorities. Dayu, possessing an unmatched literary intellect, finishes her composition first.
Then Baoqin and Baochai follow shortly after.
But Tanchen finds herself struggling. She manages only half a poem as the incense nears its end.
And Baoyu is similarly floundering. He writes lines, finds them lacking, erases them, and is effectively staring at an incoherent draft while the time evaporates.
But his response to this failure is what merits close attention. He notices Tanchen's incomplete work, completely abandons his own assigned tune, and utilizes his remaining time to finish her poem for her.
That decision completely subverts the expectations of a society intensely focused on individual achievement and ranking.
He willingly sacrifices his own opportunity to compete. He abandons his ego to assist his sister.
Tanchen had initiated a thought regarding the floating, untethered nature of the Catkins and the sorrow of separation. Baoyu taps into that exact emotional frequency and completes the structure for her.
It speaks volumes about his fundamental worldview. In a household where status and cleverness are paramount currencies, Baoyu consistently prioritizes empathy and connection.
He values the shared emotional experience over presenting a finished piece of his own.
It's a quiet rejection of the competitive metrics that govern the world outside the garden.
While Baoyu and Tanchen collaborate, the solo compositions from the others provide a staggering contrast and perspective. Daiyu's poem is devastatingly introspective.
She is utilizing the willow catkin as a mirror for her own profound sense of displacement.
Right. She describes the willow catkins drifting in a ball, wandering like an ill-fated human life. She observes that even grass and wood know sorrow, and wonders who will be there to gather them up when they inevitably fall to the dirt.
As an orphan living within the sprawling estate of her extended family, she is acutely aware of her fragility. She possesses no firm roots and feels entirely dependent on the shifting winds of the Jia family's favor. So she projects her internal tragedy onto the drifting seed.
To Daiyu, the catkin is a victim of forces beyond its control, moving toward an inevitable, sorrowful end.
But Balakin takes an entirely different approach to the same subject. Her composition possesses a sweeping geographical grandeur.
She expands her view beyond the confines of the garden walls. She uses the drifting catkins to write about the universal sorrow of parted lovers across the vast north and south rivers.
Balkan widens the aperture, connecting the physical movement to a classical poetic theme of separation and distance. Both Dayu and Balkan produce exquisite, melancholic verses, perfectly aligned with expected aesthetic sensibilities.
But their adherence to that melancholic interpretation sets the stage for a radical departure by the showstopper of the afternoon.
Baochai.
Enter Baoche. Her personality is the inverse of Dayu's. Where Dayu is intensely emotional, tragic, and inward-looking, Baochai is pragmatic, composed, and deeply observant of the social structures around her.
And her poem completely flips the script on the established metaphor.
She executes a brilliant piece of literary subversion. The prevailing interpretation of the willow catkin is one of lightness, vulnerability, and rootless sorrow. Bao Kai deliberately rejects this premise.
She observes the exact same object drifting in the wind and refuses to view it as a tragic victim.
She looks at the fluff blowing through the air and identifies adaptability and ambition. She completely upends the somber mood of the room. The specific translation of her ending lines is amazing. She writes, "Good wind, lend me your strength and send me up to the blue clouds."
Good wind. Lend me your strength and send me up to the blue clouds. The socio-political implications embedded in that single line are profound. Baokai reclaims the narrative of vulnerability.
She transforms the ultimate symbol of fragility into a manifesto of resilience and ambition.
She recognizes the constraints of her environment, but rather than lamenting her lack of control, she determines to harness the external forces, the good wind, as an engine for her own ascent. It is a striking reflection of her own maneuverability within the strictures of her society. She does not mourn the wind, she uses it to rise.
The reaction from the rest of the club is instantaneous. When Bao Chai reveals this poem, they are floored. They are literally slapping the table in admiration.
As they should.
Bao Chai is declared the undisputed winner of the gathering for executing such a bold, paradigm-shifting concept. Tanchun and Baokan are playfully informed that their efforts failed this round.
And Bao Yu.
Bao Yu, having submitted a blank page for his own designated tune in order to assist his sister, is promised a heavy punishment next time by the judge.
The irony there provides a perfect comedic resolution to the narrative arc. He successfully evades the severe, potentially devastating punishment from his father regarding his blank calligraphy pages, only to incur a playful, ceremonial punishment from his peers for a blank page of poetry. Meanwhile, with a sudden, startling disruption to a quiet afternoon indoors. Out of nowhere, there's this massive crash against the bamboo outside the window.
The narrative actually compares the sound to a heavy window frame collapsing. It's loud.
Yeah, the characters are startled, the maids rush out to investigate, and they discover a massive butterfly kite completely tangled and stuck in the bamboo shoots.
And Bao Yu, who is always incredibly observant of the people in his sprawling, interconnected household, he immediately recognizes the object.
He identifies it right away as belonging to a Miss Jiaohong from the older master's courtyard. But the immediate reactions to finding this stranded kite, they really highlight the distinct social hierarchies and personality traits within the room.
Oh, absolutely. Bao Yu, in his typical desire to maintain harmony and just please everyone around him, suggests they simply take it down and politely return it to Miss Jiaohong.
But the maid, Ziwan, views the situation through a completely different lens. She's feeling a bit cheeky and actually argues against returning it.
Yeah, she questions why Miss Jiaohong should be the only one to possess such a beautiful item. Ziwan declares her intention to just keep it for themselves.
Tanchun's immediate intervention reframes this, from a simple dispute over a toy to a matter of spiritual safety. How does Tanchun's reaction expose the deeper cultural rules governing this courtyard?
Well, Tanchun steps in to warn Zihuan that she is not only being petty, but she is also violating a crucial cultural taboo. Tanchun states firmly that picking up someone else's lost kite is strictly forbidden.
A massive red flag.
Huge. And Daiyu immediately supports this, introducing the core concept that anchors this entire scene.
The practice of letting go of bad luck.
Right. Letting go of huiki. The tradition of sending a kite away, allowing the string to snap, or intentionally cutting it, is meant to carry your personal bad luck, your illnesses, and your misfortunes away into the sky.
So the kite ceases to be just paper and bamboo at this moment. It becomes a vessel.
Precisely. Therefore, if you find someone else's severed kite and decide to hoard it, you are actively inviting their huiki into your own home.
You are adopting their misfortune.
Exactly. In the cosmology of this world, illness and bad luck are not abstract concepts. They are heavy, stagnant energies that can be physically transferred.
Just imagine a world where bad vibes are literal, physical objects you can accidentally hoard if you aren't careful. It completely changes the stakes of finding a lost item.
It really does.
A beautiful butterfly kite in the bamboo isn't a lucky discovery. It is a literal anchor for someone else's sorrow. And once Zihuan understands the spiritual weight of what she's holding, her demeanor completely changes.
She panics a bit.
Yeah, she urgently has the smaller maids take the kite out to the gatekeeper. She wants that stagnant energy off the premises immediately, just in case someone comes looking for it.
It's a remarkable pivot. The atmosphere of the afternoon shifts entirely. Daiyu suggests that since someone else in the compound is actively letting go of their bad luck, they should seize the moment, bring out their own kites, and release their own huiki.
A moment of accidental discovery is instantly transformed into a deliberate communal ritual of spiritual cleansing. And the ensuing preparation is vividly chaotic. The maids are scrambling, pulling out high stools, gathering reels, and searching for scissors. And the kites themselves, form an incredible roster of symbolism that perfectly reflects the characters who fly them.
The visual descriptions here are just so rich.
They really are. We see Tanshun's kite, which is described as a giant phoenix with soft wings, so it's a symbol of nobility, but perhaps with an inherent vulnerability because of the soft wings.
Right.
Then Baoken brings out a large, vibrant red bat kite, which is a classic symbol of incoming blessings and good fortune. And then Baoke enters the scene with a staggering string of 7 continuous wild geese, which is just a perfect reflection of her adherence to sequence, tradition, and social order.
And amidst this majestic spectacle in the sky, we zero in on Bayu, who is experiencing a deeply comedic yet revealing sequence of frustrations.
He really is.
He finds himself entirely sidelined during a ritual he desperately wants to participate in.
It's a total tragedy of errors for him. He sends a maid all the way back to his rooms to fetch his favorite kite, which is this big fish given to him by Madame Lai. After a long wait, the maid returns empty-handed, reporting that another maid, Kingwin, had already released the fish into the sky the day before.
So it's already gone.
Already gone. Baiyu laments that he never even got a turn with it. So trying to pivot, he asks for his big crab kite. The maids search again, but instead of the crab, which they explain was given away to the third master, they bring back an incredibly delicate, exquisitely crafted beauty kite from Nanny Lin.
Literally every single one of his preferred choices is unavailable.
Right. And what's fascinating here is how Baiyu processes this sequence of disappointments, because it highlights the deep contradictions in his character.
It really does. Initially, he inspects the delicate beauty kite and is genuinely captivated by its exquisite craftsmanship. He possesses a profound, almost reverent appreciation for beauty, particularly delicate, feminine beauty.
But that reverence collides violently with reality once he actually tries to fly the thing.
It refuses to cooperate.
Absolutely refuses.
Yeah.
It won't ascend higher than the roof of the house before repeatedly crashing back down. The narrative really emphasizes his physical exertion here. He starts sweating profusely from the effort and the sheer embarrassment of failing, while everyone around him is watching and laughing.
And then his frustration just boils over.
He snaps.
He violently throws the kite to the ground and makes a highly revealing threat. He points at the object and declares that if it weren't a beauty, he would stomp it to a pulp. He would smash it to pieces right there in the courtyard.
It's such a striking collision of his values. He physically restrains himself from destroying the kite because it represents a beautiful maiden, which he is conditioned to worship and protect. Yet, simultaneously, he's throwing a massive tantrum because his toy isn't obeying his commands.
It perfectly encapsulates his duality. He is highly sensitive, yet shielded by immense privilege, making him prone to extreme immaturity when the world does not bend to his immediate desires.
And it's Dayu who ultimately diffuses the situation, which is a brilliant character beat. Instead of coddling his outburst, she relies on total practical reason.
She observes the kite and simply points out that the top string is tied poorly. She instructs him to have the top string fixed, bringing a grounded moment of mechanical problem-solving to his emotional spiral.
Which is exactly what he needed. So Bayu sends the beauty kite off to be adjusted and grabs another reel in the meantime. Soon the sky above the courtyard is filled with magnificent kites, and the maids bring out intricate food boxes to accompany the event.
It's a luxurious, highly sensory afternoon.
But as the focus shifts back to Dayu, the tone of the narrative deepens considerably. Zhuan encourages Dayu to take a turn with her own kite because the wind is pulling with incredible force. Dayu takes the reel, and the wind is so fierce that she has to protect her hand just to hold on.
The detail of Dayu using her handkerchief as a pad between her delicate hand and the wooden reel is incredibly evocative.
It's a great image.
It emphasizes the raw, invisible power of the natural elements pulling against her, contrasting sharply with her inherent physical fragility. The tension on that string is immense.
And as Dayu holds this straining line, Liwan offers a piece of advice that anchors the entire thematic weight of the scene. She reminds Dayu that flying these kites is not merely an amusement.
Right, Liuan explicitly states that it is a deliberate act to take away the root of the disease. For Dayu, who suffers from chronic illness and deep internal melancholy, this act is elevated from a leisurely pastime to a desperate, hopeful medical and spiritual intervention.
She is holding the literal manifestation of her illness on the end of that string.
She is.
And the specific mechanism of how they execute this release is meticulous. Ziwan decides that Dayu is being a bit too hesitant, perhaps too emotionally attached to the kite, so the maid takes decisive action.
Which is very in character for Ziwan.
Very much so. A maid named Swain hands over a pair of small, Western silver scissors. And the inclusion of Western silver scissors is a brilliant detail, quietly highlighting the wealth and the specific foreign goods flowing into this noble household.
Oh, definitely.
Ziwan takes those scissors and cuts the string right at the root of the reel. The text notes that she leaves absolutely no thread behind. It is a complete, irreversible severing.
This raises an important question about how we visualize the act of letting go. The narrative forces us to watch the departure of this illness through the hyper-focused eyes of the characters standing in the courtyard.
The visual sequence is stunning. Following the sharp clack of the silver scissors, the kite floats back, suddenly unmoored from the earth. As it drifts higher into the fierce wind, it shrinks to the size of an egg. Then it diminishes into a tiny black speck against the sky. Finally, it vanishes entirely into the void.
And the crowd stands mesmerized, staring upward and murmuring about how beautiful the vanishing act is. But Bayou's reaction diverges completely from the rest of the group.
He always has a slightly different wavelength.
He really does. Bayou demonstrates a profound, almost magical level of empathy. While the others are marveling at the visual spectacle of the disappearing kite, Bayou immediately projects deep human emotion onto this inanimate object.
He starts worrying about where it's going to land.
Exactly. He worries aloud about where the kite will eventually end up, imagining it falling into a barren, desolate, unpopulated wilderness. His immediate concern is that Dayu's kite will be incredibly lonely out there in the wild by itself.
His empathy is so radical that he cannot bear the thought of a paper kite experiencing isolation. And his solution is immediate and decisive. He takes the silver scissors and cuts the string of his own kite, specifically so it can ride the wind and keep Dayu's kite company in the unknown.
He sacrifices his own joy, his own possession, purely to provide companionship to an object he believes is lonely.
It's a tender, quietly heartbreaking moment. But the serenity of that release is about to be shattered. Here's where it gets really interesting, because we reach the absolute climax of the afternoon.
The airspace above the courtyard is about to become highly contested.
That's putting it mildly. Tanjin is standing there, preparing to use the scissors to cut the string of her giant, soft-winged phoenix kite. But just as she's about to make the cut, a second phoenix kite suddenly appears in the sky above them.
And no one in the courtyard knows who it belongs to.
Right. And it begins drifting dangerously close to Kachin's. The maids urge her to wait, realizing that the second phoenix seems to be actively trying to tangle with hers. And sure enough, the two majestic phoenix kites drift together and become hopelessly knotted in midair.
This creates an immediate, intense physical struggle. The people on the ground trying to control Tanshin's kite start pulling and violently adjusting their lines, while whoever is controlling the mystery, Phoenix, does the exact same thing from an unseen courtyard.
They are locked in a tense, high-altitude stalemate, neither side willing to yield and neither able to break free. And while these two phoenixes are locked in this aerial combat, a third kite violently swoops into the frame.
And this isn't just a normal kite.
No, the text describes it as a massive double happiness kite, as large as a door sash. And it is not a silent intruder. This kite is equipped with sounding firecrackers that ring out like a bell echoing across the sky.
It's just brilliant.
It is a massive, noisy, unavoidable presence that barrels directly into the two tangled phoenixes.
The orchestration of this chaos is incredible. Now, there are three massive kites, two phoenixes, and a giant, booming double happiness, all tangled together in a high-tension knot. The physical strain is immense.
Everyone on the ground is jerking the lines, trying desperately to untangle them.
But the structural tension of the wind and the knotted strings is simply too great. Suddenly, under the sheer weight of the struggle, all the strings snap simultaneously.
The connection to the ground is entirely severed in an instant. The three intertwined kites, still impossibly knotted together, drift away completely out of control, floating off into the distance until they disappear from sight.
And the sudden mechanical breakdown of the string snapping releases all the built-up tension in the courtyard.
The reaction of the crowd is pure, unadulterated release. They erupt in roaring laughter. They clap their hands and call the unknown owner of the double happiness kite mischievous for causing such an incredible, chaotic scene.
It's such a shift in energy.
It is. Dayu, having exhausted her fragile energy, announces she is tired and retreats to her room to rest, while Bao Chai pragmatically suggests the rest of them finish releasing the remaining kites before the gathering scatters. When you consider the psychological power of this practice, it offers a fascinating alternative to how we process stress today. We often just sit with our anxieties hoping they'll simply fade. But the characters in this text utilize a highly visual, deeply physical act.
They attach their anxieties, their bad luck, their literal root of illness to a physical object.
They feel the tension of that anxiety pulling against their hands, and then they sever the tie. They stand together and watch it be carried away by the wind until it becomes a tiny speck and disappears.